This webinar is being hosted by the California Center for Cooperative Development as part of an ongoing educational series called Promoting Shared Wisdom Through Cooperative Connections, which is aimed at supporting the most pressing needs of cooperators and support organizations. Keep an eye out for more webinars in the coming months. We are currently working on our schedule for June and July. So if you aren't already receiving our newsletters, be sure to sign up for those to see what's ahead. For those not familiar with CCCD, we are a statewide nonprofit based in Northern California. We support all sectors of co-ops across the state with startup management and technical assistance. And then we are also an educational entity, so not only working with cooperators and those partners that we mentioned, but the public at large in terms of offering community events and conferences and informational literature. But without further ado, let's get to the reason why you're all here, which is Sassy. Sassy's been an incredible longtime partner and friend of CCCD. She was part of the group that founded the California Co-op Conference, which has been running for many years until this year. But Sassy has come back each year to share her expertise and energy with cooperators. So we are thrilled to have her here today. And with that, Sassy, I'm going to hand it over to you and make you the host, and then if you could please make me the co-host, I would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. While you're doing that, and I will just make it large so I can see what's happening. Hello, everyone. What a privilege. I'm noticing we've got a lot of worlds colliding on this call, and also some experts I haven't seen in a very long time. Hi. Oh, how delightful. This is going to be a fun one, y'all. I'm really excited. In the small group breakouts, there is some experts in this room, so I am very excited. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get down to business. I am going to have these slides just as a way to make sure that the visual learners in the room are included, but if they're not useful to you, I invite you to go ahead and if you put your Zoom into multi-screen view or gallery view, you can slide between how many faces you see versus how large the slides are. So I invite you to do that. Okay, so here we are. So this is kind of the topic for today. Let's go really quickly through our kind of preamble. I'll give you a bit of an idea of the arc of the meeting. There are additionally, for those of you that are visual learners, we have, of course, these slides and then the collaborative notes document, which I'm going to ask Jana and Rafi to just drop into the chat really quickly if you don't already have it. That's a running notes document for all of us to kind of continuously add to. Don't worry about adding notes to it yet. It's going to come in a little bit later, but just to make sure you have all the ways to participate that you need. So first off, who the heck am I? Why the heck am I here talking to y'all? Those of you who know me, this is old news, but for those of you who don't, I'm a lifelong co-opper and general communicator, community builder, and special things that I love to do is really help groups make decisions collaboratively and cooperatively as smoothly as possible. And I founded a consultancy to help me do that in 2008, right into the first economic recession of my adult life. And having practiced that and having done that a lot, I definitely see that if there's one good skill set to get really, really tuned up in, it's how to talk to each other and how to decide things together. Whether or not you're in a cooperative enterprise, as many of you are here, whether or not you live in cooperative housing, or if you just have relationships with other people where you have to accomplish things together. Those two skill sets and some frameworks to enable those, really, really, really key. And they're a personal passion of mine. So that's why I'm here today talking about it. And I live a life that helps me flex those skills and muscles pretty continuously. And so I'm always really excited to share what I know and gather people in collaboration to do more of that learning together. So that's really our agenda here today. Today we're going to focus on decision-making in groups, and especially in this kind of disrupted and distanced moment that we're facing right now. So that said, as we talked about last week, and these are separate workshops, but they do kind of build on each other. One tool for having good conversations is to always have ground rules. And again, however, every workshop that I do is both what we're talking about and how we're talking about it. So if I were to be in a group having a meeting or some sort of decision-making process, I would be using a lot of the same tools that I'm also teaching you right now. So we're trying to nest it and do everything pretty meta. So especially in a decision-making context, that meeting I would have ground rules, or that conversation would have ground rules. I'm gonna walk us through very briefly these ones for us, but that link there as well is to more extensive rules. I am agnostic as to what ground rules you and your groups use. You use whatever ones make your conversation safe, easy, and equitable. If it's this one, great. If it's not, it's not. Use whatever one works. That's the definition of the right tool. But for us, I like to say, you know, first off, let's equalize the space, right? Let's make sure that we're taking the right amount of airtime. Let's make sure that we're investigating and interrogating anything that would keep us unequal in the amount of power that we have in the room. To that end, let's check our assumptions, right? Not project our knowledge, but own it, not assume that anyone is part of a homogenous group or that anyone, you know, is a representative of any particular identity group. We're all going to own our own knowledge. And we're also going to respect each other's knowledge. That said, we're also going to have the right to be human, right? Like, shit's real right now. And sometimes people have a hard day. Sometimes people, you know, had a fight with their mom. Sometimes they're low blood sugar. Sometimes things are real, and still we need to get together and pass the budget and make things happen. And one of the ways we do that is making sure that we just give each other a little bit of credit in the right to be human, and we recognize that common humanity and commit to working with each other through it. And that said, the way we do that is having some nuts and bolts around consensual dialogue, right? So how do we agree to take turns? What are the mechanisms for how we're going to collaborate and participate here? How are we going to, you know, am I an appropriate amount of eye contact? How are we going to check ourselves and have a speakers list, etc.? And so doing that, especially over a digital context, as we talked about last week, there's some tools and mechanism and skills you have to build, because we're not all sitting around a table. We can't read each other's body languages easily. Our traditions and our rituals are a little disrupted, so we have to build new ones in this moment. So that's part of what we're going to do today. So to that end, I would really love to know and invite all of y'all to do a quick introduce yourself in the chat. With this many glorious participants, you know, divide the airtime. Even if we each took 10 seconds, that'd be a huge bulk of our call. So I'm going to invite you to, in the chat, please introduce yourself with your name, your preferred pronoun, and the answer to the question, if you were a kitchen implement, so something you would use in a kitchen, definition up to you, what would you be and why? Really briefly, think one sentence. So your name, your preferred pronoun, and if you were a kitchen implement, what would you be and why? I'll model that real quick while y'all are entering that in the chat, and I'm excited to read those. My name is Kate, or Sassy, whichever you prefer. My preferred pronoun is I'm generally cisgendered, so she is fine, but I also identify as genderqueer occasionally, and so whatever you use for me is good. I'm going to be damaged by whatever pronoun you like. And if I were a kitchen implement, today I would be a fish spatula, because you can use it to fry things, you can use it to flip eggs, you can use it to stir things in a soup. It's a very all-round tool, and that's kind of how I'm feeling today. Specialized but versatile, so fish spatula. And I'm going to take a quick look in the chat to see if folks are joining us. Yes. Oh, okay, the chat window has closed for me. I'm going to rely on, I'm going to bring up the chat in a minute. But for us, let's move on forward really quickly. Quick tips for a smooth and human Zoom. Please do have your video on if you can. It's really great to see each other's faces, especially modeling decision making, getting comfortable with how you look on a camera and how you're watching other people for visual cues. It's a skill set that feels awkward, but we do want to flex. If you're not able to, always have a pass. You'll notice that I have a background on. A background can be a really helpful way to equalize the space. If, for example, some folks feel like, you know, my living space is either really cramped, or I feel like I don't want to let people into that space. It's really private. A Zoom background could be a really great equalizer in that kind of leveling. It's also kind of fun sometimes. I happen to like feeling like I'm in a forest of grass, so we're good. And of course, find your interaction buttons, find your mute, find the things, use the tools that you've got. So just wanted to throw those out there for how we're going to operate today. Okay, magic. So what I want to start us off with, we did one of these in the previous call, and I want us to kind of try it again, is we're gonna try a pair and share. So a pair and share is a really great ritual to start off a conversation or start off a meeting with. And one of the reasons it's really great is that it's a great way for the group to kind of get a little sense of where you're all at, as well as moving folks into the mindset of whatever you're going to be tackling today. So for us, I'm gonna ask everybody to do a little bit of thinking on what a moment of struggle and or resilience that you have seen in your community, specifically around decision making or governance. Right, so think to a time in your community, maybe that's your workplace, maybe that's your shared housing situation, maybe that's, you know, your extended family, and you've got to come together and make a decision. Think about a moment when you had to either make a decision or do some governance in your shared endeavor, whatever that is, and think about a moment of struggle or of resilience that you witnessed in that. And we're going to break into groups of 2, maybe 3 for just a few minutes, literally 1 minute each, to just share out what that is, and then I'll come back together in the whole group. Does everybody understand what we're doing? Cool, I see some nods, yes, feedback, good, I see some nods, okay. If anyone doesn't, throw it in the chat. I'm going to open these rooms right now, and you should be getting an invitation to your room in just a moment. If someone doesn't show up in your room, I might move you around, so stay tuned, be patient, and let's go. And 3, 2, 1, boom, all the doors closed. Welcome back, everybody. Hello. Thank you all for going with that. Thanks for everyone who got a bonus check-in from parents doing childcare on the side and getting that wisdom of all the ages into the room. I would love it if folks felt inspired to share either a moment of resiliency or struggle from this in the chat. That would be really amazing if folks wanted to drop one in. I know we have a couple of folks who are here by call-in on the phone, so do please feel invited to, unfortunately we don't have the ability to just selectively take people off mute in the time we have, but if you're on the phone and you want to contribute, do know that the running decision making or the running notes document is there, and we're going to have time later to make sure we can take you off and make sure you get included. And we'll of course have you in the small group breakouts. I'll just share one moment of resilience that I witnessed in my community around decision making this week, as people, if you feel inspired to put some of yours from the parent share into the chat. I witnessed a distributed community of childcare providers who were really struggling with how to make sure that their parents and their children were supported. They had a wide diversity of opinions about what health and safety constituted in the COVID moment. They were able to come to a decision about how they're going to safely reopen in the next month, this month. And I witnessed them kind of all come together and commit to their shared goal. And it was really, really inspiring and really brilliant in a really high stakes manner. So I just wanted to share that. Let's move swiftly forward to, I'm going to talk at y'all for just a little bit, and then we're going to go into small group trouble solving. If you have clarifying questions about what I'm talking about, or if I'm talking too fast, I talk fast when I'm excited. Please help me help you by letting me know in the chat, which I'm watching, and I will slow down and or make sure I get those clarifying questions. Okay, so organizational decision making. How does your organization govern itself? Right? We're talking about decision making. Often we're talking about governance, and sometimes we're talking about specifically, we have a proposal or an action or a thing we need to do. How do we decide, go from what are we going to do to this is what we're doing? So there are lots of different ways, but I like to break this into kind of 2 buckets to think about how your organization or your group governs itself. First off, there are the official processes, right? Meetings, committees, your action structure, maybe there's ad hoc project groups. There's also often, especially in a cooperative setting, a staff and board. Sometimes they're all the same thing, as in with, for example, many worker-owned enterprises or worker-owned collectives. Sometimes the entire organization is articulated such that the board and the staff are the same group. Sometimes, as in perhaps in grocery cooperatives or in some other kinds of more hybridized forms of creative organization, they may be distinct entities, they may be overlapping. Those are different places where you have formal duties of power and of decision making, and overlapping or distinct realms in which you make that decision making and which you wield that power in service of the shared mission. So those are your official structures and processes. Those are really, really, really important to know, especially as mostly in a cooperative setting, they tend to be, more people forward. So they're not, something that sits on a shelf and is forgotten about. They're actually something that you're utilizing and working and tweaking more because you have more agency and ownership over them. So those are the official pathways. Then there's the unofficial pathways, which all organizations have, and it's to a greater or lesser degree where the real actual quote unquote work happens. So these are in the organic conversations that happen in the corridor, or now there's a little less organicness unless you have, regular times when you all just get together in some fashion over the phone or over the fence or whatever in order to actually collaborate. We have less kind of, quote unquote water cooler moments right now when you're actually just passing by each other and say, hey, can we talk about a thing real quick and come to a decision or a synthesis of a need. So organic conversations, interpersonal relationships, right? I don't know, many of you have been pretty much endemic to any organization. There's that one person who you know you can always just talk to real quick, and they're the person to go to get the thing done. That's an organic and informal relationship that may or may not map to the actual formal power structures and decision pathways at your organization, but it supplements them regardless. And then, of course, those, like I said, informal power pathways, right? The people you know you jibe with, or the people you know are the ones who can articulate the need or make the thing happen or get the agenda, etc. So between the official and the unofficial pathways in any organization, you have the conundrum always of what goes into choosing the right decision-making process, right? In your informal spaces and your formal spaces, that's really, what is the right process? Right defined as the one that works, that serves to maximize your mutual mission and does the least harm, right? That is what works is. There is no right definition for any situation or organization. It's the one that maximizes your equitability, maximizes your goals, and does the least harm in achieving it, right? So that's the definition of right. So things that go into choosing this right structure for you are things like scale, both of your staff and of your community or the customer base that you're serving, and or the membership of your organization, depending on how you're articulated. The structures, right? Are you 100% consensus? Are you extremely flat? Are you hierarchical? Do you have a representativeness? Do you have a mix of the two, depending on the situation? What's your mission, and how is your, how you're walking your talk reflected? So if you're a mission to promote cooperatives around the world and you're not making decisions cooperatively, there's likely to be a bit of a disconnect there. What are your values, norms, and of course your aspirations, right? Sometimes, especially an organization that's in its younger times or in a time of complete transition and change, some of you may be in this moment right now as our environment has really changed. Making sure that your processes track to your aspirations, to where you want to be going, what you want to be either scaling to or evolving to or doing. That's really, really important, because the byproducts of your structure will inform what you can accomplish. And it will constrain what questions you can ask and what decisions you can make through that process. So on that note, I really want to just call the context into the room, right? Because context is really what we're grounded in for how we're going to be making any kind of decision. Because again, human factor, we're all people. We're going to be coming to it. One of my favorite quotes about what any system of governance is, at the end of the day, it all comes down to a finite number of fallible people sitting in a room talking to each other. That is the heart of all governance at any level. And so that means context matters deeply. So what's different right now in this moment for us? And this was different for our communication, and it's different for decision making. It's really important to ground in it. Logistically, things are different. Emotionally, things are different. Economically, things are very different. Environmental situations, not just speaking, as in people, planet, profit, that planet part, but environmental as in the context of our work, of our living, of our sharing. And also organizational. Some organizations have had to drastically reduce staff if you're a staffed organization. Some organizations are, I talked to a co-housing group the other day that they're finding it actually much easier to do a lot of things around the common house because everyone's stuck at home. They've got more bandwidth. So there's a lot of differences, and they may not always be affecting every group the same way, or every member of your group the same way. And additionally, just assume we may be a little farther apart right now, and we're all definitely under more stress. Just as a baseline, the world is a little bit more stressed and a little bit more uncertain, which is going to impact lots and lots of things. Just for one example I saw the other week, banks are right now in a time of financial uncertainty. Banks and financial institutions are generally fairly risk averse, if they're good ones. That means that what is available in terms of funding is both more available because there's more funding, but also less available because the risks are higher. So that's actually affecting, for example, the ability of some organizations to get loans to scale to make investments. So there's a lot of things that really impact this at a lot of different levels. And of course, one thing that's really important for your group, if you haven't already had a chance to sit and assess with each other, how are all these differences really impacting your ability as a group to make wise decisions, both as people, right, as those humans we mentioned, as coworkers and colleagues, right, in that professional hat? What are the workflows, the decision flows, the communication flows that may be interrupted or altered? And as business owners, how is your ability to make wise decisions as the owners and deployers of an enterprise? So it's good to just check in on that. So really briefly, I'm going to go through some tools, and then I'm going to give you kind of snapshots of a few tools. I invite you to go check the collective notes document for links to these tools to poke around on your own right now or later. I'm going to kind of breeze through these because you're going to get these slides, and we've covered them a little bit more in depth in our communication call. So specifically technologies, different kinds of technologies that can be used to make wise decisions. We covered a lot about communication before. There are three main things I really want to cover here. First, return to your structures. We talked about rituals being technology last time. Your structures are a technology. Please return to them. Now is a really good moment to review and reaffirm or revise whatever kinds of informal or formal operating agreements or decision-making or communication processes or structures your group has for governance and decision-making, and adapt them either temporarily or temporarily with a permanent review moment later if they turn out to be good adaptations for your new context. This is really important because the one thing that really will hurt an organization is if when you return to your structures in a moment of crisis, in a moment of conflict. If you have a moment of conflict coming down the road at you, or if you have a moment of crisis coming down the road at you, and your processes are not ready to serve you in this moment, you're going to face a higher chance of failure and of dissolution and of conflict than you would if you had those structures to return to. So it's always a great time to have kind of an annual refresh and review of your processes and structures. I'd say also have an environmentally driven review of your processes and structures. So return to your structures and take a look at them. Make sure that they're tooled up to serve you right now. Then, of course, we covered this video conferencing, phone calls, shared documents, all of which we're kind of modeling right now and which we've modeled before. And then three different tools which we're going to go over, which are for polls, proposals, and voting. Those are three kind of main basic tools for decision making in a distributed context, in any context. But here are some technologies we can use for those. So we have a Poll Everywhere, which we'll use later, which is an interactive decision making dialogue tool. Loomio, which some of you may know, which is a collaborative proposal and making and voting process that's actually came out of the Occupy movement and is a part of an amazing collective called the Inspiral Collective down in New Zealand. And then we have Co-Budget, which is a collaborative financial planning and management tool, which I'm actually seeing some civic entities to have an interest in. So let's really briefly take a look at those three. Right, so Poll Everywhere, these are just some screenshots for the variety of different tools they have for synthesizing dialogue that can be really, really effective, especially in a distributed context where it's really hard to, for example, keep a speakers list. You know, that's really challenging over the Zoom or the phone. So there's a variety of things you can do there. Also, Loomio, I mentioned, this is a really great way you can build proposals, you can dialogue around the proposals, track iterations, and then even vote in a variety of ways. You can vote collaboratively, you can vote in consensus, you can vote in all sorts of different articulations, and there's a lot of really great articulation in that platform. You know, that one's built by people who are leftist techies, and it's really helpful. And then Co-Budget, I use this for a couple of volunteer groups that I work with. This is just a methodology that helps you define where you're going to put money. You could absolutely do the same thing in Loomio or with a shared spreadsheet. It's just that sometimes, especially shared resources, can be a really high stakes topic. So sometimes it can be really helpful to have an additional tool or a tool that just is actually explicitly built for managing the sharing of resources and how to steward that dialogue. Sometimes that one level of distance can be just what you need as a group to all like actually buy into doing this effectively and sharing it effectively. Again, a tool, use it if it works and not if it doesn't, but I find it to be very interesting. Okay, I'm gonna pause there before we do small group breakouts to see, I've been watching the chat. I don't see any clarifying ones. Aha, wait, here we go. Someone asking, yes, Tree, I will repeat, I will actually send out that quote about government, because that's one of my absolute favorites by the author Lois McMaster-Bujold, who is a genius among science fiction writers. So I will absolutely share that. Use it in the boardroom. Boy, is it helpful. Gianna, Rafi, can you back me up? I don't think I'm seeing anything in the chat about questions, but it's a little hard for me to see the whole thing.
Yeah, nothing else has come through for right now.
Magic. Y'all are rocking it. Loving it. I see something that's good. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to practice one of these tools right now to crowdsource and upvote what the scenarios we want to have for our trouble solving small groups. So we're going to break into small groups in just a moment. What I would like you to do first is go to that link that's been dropped into the chat that's also here on the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and also share it in just a moment as the screen share. So I'm actually going to stop share right now so that I can then pull that up to share in its own way. What I would like you to do is please go into that poll, and there's a question at the top. And the question you will see is, in fact, and I'll pull it up right here, what decision-making conundrum, issue, challenge, stumbling block do you most fear, right? So here, let me share the screen again so you should be able to see this in real time. What I'm going to ask you to do, we're going to take 2 minutes collectively, and you're going to go ahead and enter a response. That's your submission, right? What you believe is the thing you most fear. So we're going to crowdsource this. Once you've entered that in, go ahead and press submit. And then we're going to let folks all submit things over the next minute or two, and then we're going to upvote. I invite you all to use the upvote and not the downvote, but you can use either in this tool. So using the upvote will help us synthesize from the group which of these 3 proposals we are going to use as potential scenarios for our conversation in the small groups. So we're going meta. Awesome, folks already bringing in. So what's a decision-making conundrum you most fear? Excellent. So people are entering things. And if you have this up on your screen, you can refresh when it says load more here. So I can load that and it'll show me the most important ones or the most recent ones. You can also sort by newest, or you can sort by top. Top will happen. So once you start voting. So, I don't fear any of them. I love you, fearless person. You're excellent. I'm excited to have you share lessons in your small group. I want to hear them because I don't necessarily fear them, but I have a healthy respect for them, that's for sure. Okay, great. Loving this. Awesome. Everybody take a few more moments to go ahead and vote some in, and then we'll start upvoting. And then once we have, a certain number of votes in here, I'll call it. We'll transfer those prompts over to the shared notes document, and then we'll break into small groups in order to actually have those conversations. This is fantastic. Okay, let me make sure that I have, there we go. Okay, great. We'll do that. Okay, we've got a few more responses. Great, so if you haven't started voting, vote now. Vote, 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 vote. I'm gonna put another 30 seconds on my clock right here, and at the end of that, we're going to call it. I'm going to participate by doing a little bit of voting. Let me make sure I can see what's going on in the chat. Excellent. Great. Zola, let me know if you are, I'm seeing a few questions. I'm seeing a few questions in the chat. This is great. Few folks saying they can't load a response, try refreshing. And if not, it's one more thing we need to work on. Okay, 15 seconds left. Get your vote in. Seen some good ones. Oh, these are some very good ones. All right, I'm going to refresh from new to top, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ding, end of meeting. Thank you for your votes. Thank you for all your responses. These are great conundrums. I'm going to make sure we capture all of these and put them in the shared notes document as starting points for other conversations. I invite you to actually take this exercise in its entirety to your group, because that can be a really great way to surface what kinds of things your group is thinking about and where you might need to focus your energies. Okay, so I see that our top 3 scenarios here with some close runners up are some members' communication style alienating other members. Super important. Being unable to come to a decision that everyone can accept. This is the devil's burden sometimes of having cooperative ownership and agency over your decision. You still have to come to a decision that's shared. And deciding on a budget that would require laying off staff. Ooh, yeah, that's a big one. Okay, amazing. So what I'm going to do right now is take these 3, copy them over, and go ahead and close that poll out. I'm going to drop them into the shared notes document. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the shared room for everybody. And it looks like we've had some folks who have dropped out. So I'm going to redo these rooms. I invite everybody to go ahead and make sure that these prompts, you kind of get it. So what we're going to do is we're going to break into these small groups. It's going to be about 4-ish participants per room, 4 or 5 participants per room. I want you to, when you go in there, elect a scribe who will record the participants in the room, your scenario that you've chosen from these 3, or whatever learning arrives in the room, but let's stick to these 3 so we can get some rich knowledge if we can. And any key insights or learnings in that collaborative notes document. Does this make sense to everybody? Is everybody on board with where we're at? Give me a thumbs up or a nod or a what the heck. A couple of thumbs up, a couple of nods, okay? If I'm missing a what the heck, I apologize. Make sure you throw yourself into the chat. And I'm having a little bit of trouble making sure we have the shared rooms. Here, okay, there we go. And I have now opened the rooms. I will see you all in 10 minutes. We're coming back in. 10 minutes. Go, discuss. Thank y'all for having that. Thank you for going with that. I got a chance to bounce into a few groups. I missed not getting to see everybody's faces, so but I got to kind of jump in and share and listen to a few folks. That was really delightful. Some experts in the room. Oh my God. So let's really quickly do some share outs. So I'm gonna not share my screen so that everybody can see each other's faces larger on your screen. The outcomes doc, for those of you, I see a couple of groups maybe missed having the link to put your information in. It's in the chat again. If you could please throw your insights in so the group can benefit from your wisdom, that would be amazing. And I'm going to suggest that each group, either your elected scribe, or if the scribe does not feel comfortable or excited about sharing out for the group, I suggest that your scribe nominate another member of your group in the chat. To go ahead and in the chat, please raise your hand, scribes and or nominees, to do a brief kind of, 3 or 4 key points share out from your group in your own voice. And we'll go popcorn style. Whoever raises their hand in the chat first, my admin friends will help take you off mute, and then we'll roll through that for the next 12 minutes. And if you're the scribe and you're on a phone call and can't chat, can't put in the chat, just go ahead and take yourself off mute and we'll roll with that. Leon, I see you. I see you raising your hand from group 6, my friend. We unmute Leon and then go.
Hey everyone, so we tackled being unable to come to a decision that everyone can accept. So top of mind points are: consider how to make the decision safe to try. Sorry, notes just shifted. How to make the decision safe to try. So this is more about consent by asking for agreement and getting buy-in rather than binary consensus. Other points were also maximizing agreement rather than consensus, not leaving the room until we get a decision. There's also a intention to maximize success and minimize harm, especially under a time constraint. And so a question to ask might be, there's always enough time for the right work. So what is the right work? Right.
Excellent. Yeah, when you have constraints, that can be a way, that can be pressure, but it could also be kind of like a forcing function for you to really determine, okay, now what is the most urgent thing? What is the right thing to be doing in this moment? I love it. Awesome. Thank you, group 6. That's fantastic. Any other volunteers? I'm looking at the notes and I'm personally really curious about group 4, Patricia, Ayana, Diane, and Eliza, or Eliza. Patricia, you read my mind. Go ahead, let's take Patricia off mute and learn from group 4's insights.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can. Hello.
Hello. So we have a very nice discussion. We talk about the decision making from the bottom to the top. It was one experience for me in an organization that we always ask the question first for the bottom to be sure that they are going not to follow the ideas of the boss and just agree with anything. So this is something that we discuss that is not very normal in all the companies in organizations, but I work on an organization that is like that. First, the bottom of the hierarchy answer the question, what they think about, and then the decision could change because of that, because the bosses can listen to new ideas that they are not thinking about.
Right.
So another thing that Diane explained, that when in her organization they introduced the sociocracy, she thinks that was easy to listen to everyone's voice than before, in a more comfortable way. Yes, and that you need to listen much more than talk sometimes. And when the decision making, Elisa told us that when the decision making process aren't formalized in a group, normally tends to be around the hierarchy.
So when you don't have a strong structure, those kind of default structures can assert themselves in the process. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's it.
Magic, thank you so much. That's really helpful and insightful sharing. I really love that. Yes, there's so much in there that's really rich. I'm really excited lots of groups talked about that. I'd love to invite just one more group that tackled the different communication styles that were alienating topic. And then we'll kind of go into our straw poll for what we're going to do next with the last 15 minutes of our time. But I'd really love to hear insights from some group that tackled that mutually alienating communication style situation. That's a pretty big one. Excellent. Byers and Sandra. Byers, group 2, do y'all feel like you want to step up to that ask? Sandra, do you feel excited about that? Or Byers, are you perhaps excited about that? Let's take both of them off mute, and then you have the option.
Thank you.
Go for it,
Byers,
Sandra.
do you want to go ahead?
No, you were the scribe. You should do it.
Excellent. Sandra, you go, and then Byers, you can add in if you got something. Bring it.
Awesome. And Kristen, I interpolated because we ended, so please add in if I got it wrong. We all agreed that it's a huge challenge, and we had all had situations where we had run into some challenges in one way or another. At one point, we decided we had to come up with some ideas of how to deal with it. So one of them was using a process of integrative consent in some sense, whatever that might be. So that was one. Another one, which was really interesting, was a study of middle school students where the class was recorded and people were able, when they weren't self-aware and didn't understand how what they were doing was perceived by others, they could see that in a film and say, oh, I never understood that. And then taking that to a situation or to where you can use it better in a work setting, using a facilitator who can say, you realize this is how it was perceived. So, and thank you for adding on the number 8. So it was a question of somebody doing smack talk, and then how do you both develop a policy and then help people to be direct and constructive rather than negative, even though we've got all this stuff going on.
Yeah, that's real. A lot of dimensions in there. Byers, anything you want to throw in there? Feeling pretty good? One thing, you're good. Okay, if you've got stuff, throw it in the chat. One thing I really want to highlight from that before I move us into our straw poll is the study around middle schoolers. So and video. One thing that there are many things that I don't like about connecting through a screen. There's a lot of richness that's lost. But one thing I really do like about it, right? And you should, always look to instead of trying to adapt the technology to the situation. Sometimes you want to adapt the situation to the technology and look at what it can offer you. I love that by pressing a little button, we are all suddenly able to have a recorded mirror that is the same experience very objectively of what we have just done together. That is absolutely a tool that I use in client work, I use for myself, I use when me and my wife have a fight, is being able to have a record of what did we just go through. And you can actually watch each other, how you react. And if you have your screens on, and you have your video camera on, sometimes you can even watch the micro expressions of how people, you can see the moment when somebody gets alienated. And so instead of trying to track that in the heat of the moment when you're in your feelings, you can actually zoom out, bring it back and say, okay, where in this 5 seconds did we go wrong? And then you can see it, and then you can deconstruct and you can work backwards from that. So that's actually a really powerful outcome of the fact that we're suddenly all having conversations through a medium that's really, really easy to record. So that's a very powerful example of how to lean into a new constraint in how we're interacting that can actually bring us new and novel benefits, which is what a lot of the tech world talks about in terms of like disruption and the opportunities inside disruption. This is one of those opportunities in a disrupted moment. So I just wanted to elevate that learning because boy, is it potentially powerful. I want to recognize that we're at the top of the hour and a little bit over. If you do have to run, thank you for being here. If you don't have to run, we are going to practice one more tool, which is a straw poll to see how we want to spend the next 14 and a half minutes. So if you do have to run, thank you for being here. Please do take a moment to fill out that evaluation that they've dropped just now into the chat. And look out for the recording. Stay well, be well, wash your hands, stay safe. If you are still down to be here, we're going to practice a straw poll right now, which is a very, very informal. We're going to do it very, very low tech. And let me share my screen so you can see what the heck I'm talking about. So we have 15 more minutes, and we have an option for what we're going to do with it. Either we can stay together as a whole group and just explode this and start taking ourselves off mute and have more of a trouble-solving Q&A, let's talk about it conversation with some of the absolutely brilliant minds in the room here. Or we can go back into different randomized small connection groups where we can actually then do a little bit of asks and offers and do a little bit of networking and connecting and seeing if we can build some community here together. And in that asks and offers group, I would say that, what I'm going to ask everybody to do is just introduce yourself, what you do, and one thing you are seeking support in, and one thing that you can offer to anyone else seeking support. So those are the two options. Stay together in the whole group for Q&A and talking and skill sharing. And if you please can either find your icon, which some people have done, for your thumbs up. That's the thumbs up. We're going to do that here. If you can't find that icon, put your hand in the air with a thumb. If you want to do connection groups, please either do the clapping hands icon or do jazz hands. That'll be your physical show. And please keep them up. So we're gonna put them back up. I saw some people put them up and then take them down. Keep them up. Put them up right now, and then we're gonna take a look at the screen and we're gonna do some voting. I'm gonna count thumbs. Jana and Rafi, can you count claps? Okay, and put them up. Keep them up. Gonna count. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoop. And moving on forward, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, I have 13 thumbs up. Looks like we've got about 14 or 15 abstentions who've declined to vote in the process, so that's okay. How many claps did we have?
We saw 3 claps.
3 claps. Okay, my clapping friends, we're gonna go with the will of the group. However, there is definitely a way for everybody to continue to connect, where there is an opt-in way for everybody to share information with each other to continue to connect after this. And I'm gonna ask y'all to drop that in the chat really quickly. If you fill out a very, very short, literally 2 questions Google form, then if you're willing to, your information can be shared and we can connect further on. But let's follow the will of the group. I'm gonna stop share because y'all don't need to be looking at a slide. We want to be looking at each other's faces. Popcorn style, let's talk about whatever y'all want to talk about for the next 9.5 minutes. And please do recognize I am 150% not the only expert in this room. There are other brilliant people in this room. So if you have a question or a thought, can we empower everybody to take themselves off mute? Gianna, yeah, there we go. Okay, everybody's off mute now.
We have unmuted everyone, so they have the power to unmute themselves individually now.
Great. So if you're in a noisy space, please practice, mute yourself accordingly. But let's talk about it. Questions, thoughts, what you got? Bring it. Anybody can go ahead. Although long, awkward pauses are helpful sometimes.
They only have the email.
Oh. Eliza, I'm not sure if you intend to ask a question, but your voice is being heard. Do you want to? Nope, you're good. Okay. Tree, Byers, Lorelei, I see you're off mute. Questions, thoughts, wisdom from your great process brains?
This is Sandra McCarla. One question I would have is, as
bring
we
it.
all move to greater work online, what are the things that have turned around and bitten people so far? I have a long list, so I'm just hoping other people have a few as well.
Magic. That's a great question. In a kind of moving into the working online space, what are problems people have run into or things gone wrong? Anybody have any? Bob, I see some ideas floating out of your head. Are those these ideas? Do you want to share anything?
I'm trying to operate this thing.
You're unmuted, so I can hear you. You can just talk.
Yeah, I'm confused by the controls.
Got it. So that's a great example right there. As we're trying to make decisions in a group, having unequal access to the platform that you're using and or unequal knowledge or like skill or adaptability to the platform that you're using. I know for me, I'm the, like, I like to call myself the Luddite daughter of a NASA programmer. Like my rebellion against my father was to go anti-technology. And so he can use any tool. I'm sitting here trying to figure out what buttons to press. And that's real.
I am a programmer and I can't figure this thing out.
High threshold indeed.
I know I've seen the hand thing before. I can't find it right now.
Magic. Well, worry not about that. Byers, what you got?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, if you like move your mouse, a bottom bar will come up and it says reactions, and when you click on reactions, then you see the clap or the thumbs up.
There you go.
It's not showing me any clap or thumbs.
I think it depends on what device you're using too.
It totally does.
I'm using the Linux
yeah, me
port.
too. It's not on Linux, so.
Yeah, the Linux, so, and that's another thing, right? So whether or not you're actually being, what is it, not WYSIWYG, right? Everyone is seeing something very different. So that's actually really important.
Right. So each interface for each port is different.
And so that's actually a reflection into Sandra's question of, what is one thing that can bite you in the ass? For example, we had a process in this tool or in this workshop that relied on people having the ability to find their reaction button, which is why we said also, if you can't find your reaction button, here's a workaround, right? And so for me, whenever I'm trying to get people to do something collectively over the internet, I try and have 3 different pathways to complete the mission, right? So 3 different ways that you can achieve the goal. So use the tool, use the workaround, and then maybe have a 3rd option if you can, just to make sure that you're having extra ways to collect and reflect information to each other. Because just assume there's gonna be glitches, especially now in a learning curve moment when most of us are not coming to this new process voluntarily, right? We're doing it as a reaction and an adaptation to a giant situation that may be out of our control. So that's awesome. Jean, and if I'm pronouncing your name right, I see you have your hand up. You got a question or a thought, or you want to bring something in? And then Kristen, I see you as well. Yeah, if you want to talk, go ahead and put a physical or digital hand up. Here, let me unmute you, Jean. Yeah, I see you. For some reason, I can't unmute Jean. Oh, wait. There we go. Jean, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, this is Jean Marie. My question is about using the poll. We are ready to start surveying our community and get their feedback on reopening our business safely.
Awesome.
And so the poll that you used, is that a good tool for that, or are there other tools?
Great question. So everybody has their own preferences around tools. The tool that I shared the poll everywhere, that's mostly for in real time engagements, or over the span of maybe a couple of days. But those tools are most useful when you're actually all coming together in a moment, and it's to drive the interaction in ways that aren't just us all talking to each other through a screen, right? It's to synthesize other kinds of knowledge. There are a lot of great tools out there, from the really very, very simple, which is Google Forms. Google Forms has a pretty easy way to build forms. I find them pretty useful. That's hard, for example, if you're doing things across international boundaries. Google doesn't care about all that international privacy law stuff. So if you need GDPR compliance, you might want to think about something else. Then there's, of course, things like SurveyMonkey and other stuff. I tend to, if I need a quick, easy, fast form, I tend to go with Google Forms, because they export in a way that I can read, and my father can read, and my young friends can read. So it spans more generational knowledge. I have experience, so that may be an easy option. But great question.
Okay, and then you mentioned young people. What about seniors? We have quite a few clients that are seniors.
If your seniors can, click buttons in a very simple format, and it does work on phones. They're very good at phones, desktops, digitals, tablets, whatever. The same form will pop up. But what I would always say to you is test it with at least 2 people first, 3 or 4 of different types before, and just send it to them and say, does this make sense to you? / what's wrong with this? And then send it out to your whole group. Beta testing is your friend. I always discover things wrong. Kristen, real quick for you, and then one of our many Mavery Davis is my friend in the green shirt. I think you were waving your hand at me, but I'm not sure. If you were, you're on stack. Kristen, go ahead. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, here, let me unmute you. And it's not working.
Hey, good job. Am I in here a bunch of times?
You are in here. Well, there's several people who are you, but you're good. Hang out. I'm gonna get Kristen's question real quick first, and then you're up, okay?
Okay, sorry about that.
You're good, you're good. Kristen, go ahead.
I was just interested on how people have been dealing with trying to improve communication when you're having to have a mask on while you're communicating. I work in a grocery store, so I'm noticing that some of the communication is strained because you're having to yell through a mask and you can't see as much of the person's face.
That's real, another constraint. If anybody has ideas, I welcome them. The 2 things I'll share that I've been noticing working is, and this is a challenge if you do or don't wear glasses. So if you wear glasses, it depends on whether or not how much of this part of your face is visible around the glasses. I've noticed that my eyebrow muscles are getting a workout because indicating with the rest of my face is really helping. And I'm calling on, I don't know if anybody's ever taken an improv class or has a theater background, but those kind of indications you would make with your body, I'm using a lot more of those, right? So rather than relying just on the vocal word, I'm doing a lot more gesturing and a lot more indicating and gesticulating. And it feels a little bit awkward because it feels like this is very theatrical when you're standing right in front of me. Why am I making big eyebrows at you? But it actually can be really helpful to help people get the visual cues that they're now missing. And additionally, I know there was, and I don't know if this is CDC compliant, I know there's some concerns about it, but there is a person who has, in the deaf community, who has made masks that have a small mesh window or a clear plastic window in them specifically for lip reading, because deaf folks, they're missing all of their cues right now. So that's really exciting. And some form of creativity like that. Also, I've seen one group, they've gone the full theater route and they're using little signs for the things they know they have to repeat over and over and over. So, the where is X, or how does this work? Or, if there's if you notice as you're doing your work that there are a couple of things you just keep saying, get yourself a cute little sign with some stickers on it and just hold it up. Make people laugh And then that helps get them the information they need. Always, if you can make people laugh, boy, does that help compliance. And it just eases everybody into the absurdity of the moment and gets everybody on the same team of making it work. Awesome. Okay, I wanna make sure that we have one last question from Mabry Davis. And then I'm gonna move us toward our last things, if that's okay. Apologies if I skipped someone in the stack, but I'm gonna roll with that. So, Mabry Davis in the green shirt.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just have a comment.
Bring it.
This has been really cool to see. I'm infatuated right now with cooperative business development. I'm in the process right now of trying to work cooperatively with other professionals, you know, in my industry, some of which are on the call that I invited them to, and everything. So I thought this was a really cool demonstration of just cooperative values and using the power of like these virtual meeting technologies. And I'm going to actually take a lot from this and use it like directly in the next couple of weeks. So thank you. And I'm out here. I got a meeting.
Okay, do it. Out of here. Glad. Thanks for that feedback. Throw it in the chat if you can. Throw it in the forum if you can. That's awesome. I'm going to swiftly move us forward to the end of our time so we can respect that. We're a little tiny bit over our 15, but I'm good. Last thing I want to leave you with is my favorite closing ritual. It's really, really important to have an opening ritual. We did the parent shares, and have a closing ritual to just pause, reflect, and then help you ground and move on to the next thing. Especially in this Zoom meeting world, that can be really, really helpful to actually have a clear end. My prompt to you, our ritual for lightning round, for closing is my favorite. It's called lightning round checkouts. You get 2 words, just 2 words, actually 2 words. The first word, something that moved you or that you learned today during our call. Second word, how you feel right now. So please do throw them in the chat. 2 words. First one is something that moved you or that touched you today. And the second is how you feel right now. And if you're one of our friends on the phone who can't chat, I invite you to just go ahead and speak.
Sassy, I'm going to jump in right now too and just remind everybody that the evaluation is in the chat. It's being posted right now. So please, please do give us your feedback. We really value the experience that you've had today, as well as we're also posting the Stay in Touch Google form. So if you'd like to get contact information, share your contact information among folks that participated today, feel free to share your details in that form and we will distribute it around.
Nice. Awesome. Excellent. Got some great things in the chat. New facilitation tricks, hungry. Really excited about, I resonate. For me, I'll share my lightning round checkout. Synthesis. Got some great worlds colliding up in here. Some friends I haven't seen in a very long time who I love getting to be here doing our thing with. And my second word, gratitude, because I love my job. And your hunger for more learning in this way has allowed me to do my job today. I love my job. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for going with us, for learning, for sharing. Go into the world, decide better, communicate better, wash your hands, stay safe, stay strong, and I'll see you whenever I get to see you next. Thank you so much.